welcome to the Culture Ward, where we dissect and dismember pop culture in all its forms. My name is Jess. Today we're continuing our talk about Daredevil Born Again, Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2, which aired this past week on Disney+. I posted a brief, spoiler-free review already. If you haven't seen it and want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description below. Warning, there will be heavy spoilers in this video, so stop now if you haven't seen the episodes yet. Alright, let's break down some details of the show and talk about some specific things that I liked, didn't like, or felt weird about. First and foremost, the cold open, showing Matt, Foggy, and Karen leaving their firm and walking to Josie's. We get a bunch of snippets of conversations that don't seem relevant but are obviously meant to. Foggy seemed talking to a new character, who turns out to be Kirsten McDuffie, who we'll meet later, who obviously works for the DA's office, but we don't really get any information about either of their characters, other than setting up the fact that Foggy has a stupid client facing serious criminal charges. We are introduced pretty quickly to what is obviously Bullseye. He appears in a weird tactical suit. I guess that's supposed to be his classic costume. I mean, they really missed the mark on that, but... Then Foggy gets a call and seems concerned. Matt eavesdrops with his super hearing and finds out that someone is in trouble. We find out that Foggy is keeping his stupid client hidden in his apartment because he had been getting threats, and someone is trying to get inside to get to him. Matt asks Foggy why didn't he tell him, and Foggy states that he didn't want to give Matt an excuse. This bothered me a little bit. I guess he didn't want him to be Daredevil. I know it's kind of stupid, and I guess it does track with Foggy's history of trying to de-Daredevilize Matt. But you would think he would have a slightly more nuanced opinion of Matt's secret identity by this point in their stories. So Matt runs off to Foggy's apartment to see what's happening with the client. There's some pretty rough CGI showing Daredevil jumping and swinging across rooftops, but it's pretty short. And they keep it kind of dark, so, it's not terrible. So when he arrives, he realizes that the people at Josie's are in trouble. Cut to Dex, or Bullseye, looking through a scope at Foggy and Karen standing outside Josie's. And then it happens. Our beloved Foggy Nelson gets shot, and Karen almost does too. Daredevil arrives at the last second to save Karen, and he fights Bullseye. It was supposed to be reminiscent of the Netflix show's iconic single-shot fight scenes, and it was pretty well done. At the end of the fight, Foggy dies. Matt listens as his heart stops beating. In a fit of despair, Matt throws Bullseye off the roof, presumably to his death. It should have been pretty dark, however, it's very quickly revealed that Bullseye didn't die. I'm assuming that's due to the enhancements that were made to him in a post-credit scene at the end of Season 3 of the Netflix show. Blink and you could have missed this one. And all of this happens in the cold open before the opening credits even roll. So now it wasn't terrible. The fight was pretty good. I expected Foggy and/or Karen to be killed off fairly early, although I didn't expect it in the first 10 minutes of the first episode of the first season, if I'm being honest. And while it should have been a very impactful and heart-wrenching scene, I think they lost a lot of weight by doing it so quick. And also, as I've discussed previously, if you're not really familiar with the previous shows, you're going to miss a lot of the weight of this scene. Now, we didn't have a chance to connect with these characters at all. Now, if you've seen the original series either very recently or many times like I have, then you probably do have an emotional attachment to all these people, and this scene would have worked for you. But if you haven't seen the show, or even if you watched it 7 years ago when it aired, you aren't going to be invested in these characters the way that you need to be for this opening scene to have the gravity and weight that they wanted to. Foggy's death should have been earth-shattering. And to Daredevil it was. Thankfully, Charlie Cox is a good enough actor to convey the pain that Daredevil felt, but his pain isn't really shared by the audience that barely knows Foggy, or the relationship that he and Matt had together. It was a kind of cheap way to get rid of a very important character. I think it would have been better if they absolutely had to kill him off, if they spent the entire first episode building up this scene, reintroducing these characters to a new audience, and investing us with the emotional framework to feel the loss of Foggy. Another problem I have with them borrowing the Netflix series characterization is that you also don't know anything at this point about either Matt Murdock or Daredevil or Bullseye. We don't know anything about his abilities at the start of this show. We're given kind of a glimpse that he might be able to hear things that other people can't, but that's it. That's the only thing. So at this point, we don't know what his power level is. We don't know anything about Daredevil. And honestly, why we should care that he wants to quit being Daredevil after that first opening scene. Anyway, it's a grievance, once again, that is cured if you're familiar with the source material. After the title sequence, we see Matt in a nice apartment, and we're told it's 1 year later. Again, it's kind of a cheap shot to skip past all the grief and immediate fallout of Foggy's death, but I know, you have to tell a different story. So Matt has started a new law firm with the lady we saw Foggy talking to at Josie's in the cold open. That's Kirsten McDuffie. Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, returns to New York after being absent for what we're told is a couple of years. Presumably canonizing the Echo story? Yuck. They don't actually come out and say it, but it seems like that's what they're saying. Whatever, he left and now he's back to run for mayor. He also appears to be going legit. Vanessa Fisk, Kingpin's wife, has been running his criminal enterprise and doing it better than he ever could, obviously. She is obviously not happy to see him return. I don't know how I feel about this development. Vanessa's story could be interesting, but at the present it just seems unearned and out of character for her. The second episode ends with Fisk and Vanessa in marriage counseling with Matt's girlfriend Heather Glenn, in an obvious nod to The Sopranos, but it feels weird. We'll see where it goes, I guess. Matt goes to court to give a victim impact statement in Bullseye's sentencing hearing, and Karen shows up in the courtroom. This is still the first episode. They have a brief conversation where we learn that she has moved to San Francisco in that past year, and she doesn't really want to talk to Matt for some reason. It's kind of weird and a cheap way to shelve a legacy character. A large part of the first episode focuses on Fisk's campaign for the mayoral race and his promise to reduce crime and ban vigilantes. The political parts are decent. Michael Gandolfini, James Gandolfini's son, is introduced as a youthful aide, and his character is pretty interesting. It's not what I expected from the trailers. There is some concern in the community that the Fisk campaign story is trying to parallel the rise of Donald Trump and throw shade at his supporters, and I must admit I understand. Sometimes it did feel like thinly veiled insults to MAGA and Trump, but it also works within the Daredevil universe. So maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I found it easy enough to ignore since it works in universe regardless. One of the better exposition scenes came when Matt confronted Fisk to ask about his intentions. This was the diner scene from the trailer where the two sit down and feel each other out. Matt has quit being Daredevil because a line was crossed, and Fisk claims to be on the up and up after his own journey down what he calls a road less traveled. Now Matt warns Fisk not to step out of line, and Fisk warns Matt not to become a vigilante again. It was a good scene, fairly well written. And the episode ends with Fisk winning the race. In episode 2, we're introduced to Hector Ayala, who attempts to stop two guys from shaking down another guy on a subway platform. The two guys attack Hector, and he fights them with some obvious skill, but one of the guys accidentally falls into the path of the train and is killed. The other guy pulls a gun and tells Hector that he's a cop and arrests him for murder. The other guy that they were beating up on, the one Hector was trying to protect, fled the scene. Matt agrees to represent Hector because he knows he's innocent, and that's due to Matt's abilities to tell when someone's lying. However, while investigating, Matt finds out that Hector is the White Tiger, another vigilante we see a brief clip of in the first episode. White Tiger is from the comics. He was the first Latin American superhero in Marvel Comics. So it's a pretty interesting situation. Matt, former vigilante himself, is helping to prove the innocence of another vigilante. The story works well so far, and it's the basis for the courtroom drama portion of this episode, which again was handled pretty well. Marvel has done some courtroom scenes in the past, specifically on She-Hulk, that were just laughable. It's good to see them get the courtroom parts right and to kind of lean into it as part of Matt's character. I mean, that him being a lawyer is a very important part of his character. So it's good that they're accentuating this part of Matt's alter ego. So Matt realizes that he needs to find the guy that Hector was trying to save in order to save Hector. Matt knows he's telling the truth, but without any evidence, the cop's story is just more believable. And the whole police force is on the cop's side, obviously, because they think Hector is a cop killer. So Matt does track down the guy. Matt is actually in the guy's apartment when the cops arrive to kill the guy, and they find Matt there. So now they have to try to kill Matt. And Matt has to break cover and beat the shit out of the cops just as the episode ends. Another pretty good fight scene. The rest of the episode focused on Fisk assuming his role as mayor and trying to enact his agenda. Of course, there's pushback, and he has to use some political skill as well as some of his old tactics, including some light blackmail to get what he wants. Again, the scenes are pretty well done. We do get some more of the story about Vanessa. She obviously had an affair while Fisk was gone, and she's conflicted about his return. He still loves her, though, and is trying to win her back, which is why we see them in marriage counseling toward the end of the episode. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about this aspect of the show yet. At times, it feels like it's emasculating Fisk and ignoring the backstory of these characters. We'll just have to see how it plays out, I guess. Anyway, that was the first 2 episodes in a nutshell. So far, so good. I really hope this momentum keeps up for the next 7 episodes. If so, Disney Marvel may just have a winner on their hands at long last. Fingers crossed. What about you? What did you think about Daredevil Born Again? Did you like it? Hate it? Somewhere in between? Let me know in the comments below. New episodes of Daredevil Born Again release on Tuesdays on Disney+. I'll do a similar recap review of episode 3 next week. As always, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Bye for now, and we hope to see you next time in the Culture Ward.